Now, let's continue with the analysis of the Sunday's electoral day in Honduras. And for that, we are joined now by political scientist Rodolfo Pastor. Hello, Rodolfo. Welcome to From the South.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
First thing, voting day in Honduras is reaching its deadline in a context of harassment, in a context of interference attempts. In this scenario, how would you describe the role played by the people in defending the democratic institutions today?
Well, fortunately, what we have seen this day is a very high turnout. Citizens of Honduras have gone out to vote, regardless of the threats and regardless of the confrontation and the polarization that we've been experiencing for the last couple of months. There has been a lot of confrontation within the institutions in charge of the electoral process, and that has resulted, of course, in a lack of credibility in these institutions. And of course, we're also confronted as a government and a party that is proposing a very deep reform of the structural reality in our country, a very formidable obstacle by the opposition parties that represent the political and economic elites.
And there has been an open attempt to impose the Monroe Doctrine in Honduras with the complicity of the extreme right wing of the country throughout this electoral process. From a Latin American perspective, what regional patterns do you identify in the way far-right movements challenge electoral results or democratic institutions?
Well, they do so without any respect for sovereignty, without any respect for the right to self-determine our destiny as independent, autonomous peoples and countries. They do so beyond borders. And what we have experienced here in Honduras throughout this electoral process is almost surreal. A couple of days ago, there was a post by President Trump basically stating the candidate that he would support and that we should support, and referring to the other two candidates in a very, very despicable way, a very hostile, aggressive statement, completely public interference, intervening in our own sovereign process. And not only that, but a day ago, just one day before the elections, he actually went so far as to promise that if the candidate that he preferred won the elections, that he would go ahead and he would grant a pardon to former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who is currently serving a 47-year sentence in the U.S. courts, as he has been sentenced because of his links with organized crime and narco trafficking. So he's clearly taking sides. He's doing so in a very brazen way, and he's doing so lacking completely any respect for the sovereignty and the independence of our own people.
And this fact that you just mentioned, that is the stance that the U.S. President Donald Trump has taken in the context of this electoral process, granting a pardon to former convicted ex-president Juan Orlando Hernandez. I want to ask you, how would you connect this stance with the current military deployment the U.S. has in Caribbean waters that is also putting at risk sovereignty in the region? How can we connect this scenario?
Well, it's very much connected and it's very contradictory, and it exposes the hypocritical approach that the US and specifically President Trump is taking against, very different contexts within the region. On one side, he is justifying whatever he is doing to be very aggressive against Venezuela and anyone who is in solidarity with Venezuela, claiming that he has mobilized this massive movement of troops and war equipment to the Caribbean Sea in order to somehow stop drug traffic from happening. And yet he is willing to grant a pardon for a man who is convicted not by Honduran courts, not by Venezuelan courts, but by American courts, has been convicted for drug dealing and for moving tons and tons of drugs up to the US This is, I think, self-evident hypocrisy, and it exposes the kind of contradiction that Trump so commonly falls into.
In this scenario, Honduras have been facing these attempts of interference from abroad, from the U.S. empire, and I wanted to mention that this is no news for the people of Honduras. And in this context, what role have Honduran social movements historically have played in defending democratic institutions?
Well, we are the emblematic banana republic. Honduras was colonized in the modern times by huge U.S. corporations that planted and grew bananas for export, that ran the country for, a very, very long time, that shaped the country's politics and democracy in many ways, and that still has a lot of traces in it within the institutional arrangements of our democracy and our political system. Against this imposition, the Honduran people have organized throughout its history, and they have suffered repression from military governments that have been boosted and sustained by the U.S. in many cases. In the most recent one of those, it was the coup back in 2009 that was supported by the United States in many ways, and that was able to sustain a de facto regime for 6 months that eventually led to the consolidation of this corrupt and repressive regime led by Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was later, like we were saying, convicted for his links to drug traffic and weapon trafficking. So, we are used in Honduras, we are used to the influence, to the interference of the United States of America. And we are used to resisting that interference and to try to defend our democratic rights and our right to self-determine our destiny. And yet it is no less shocking that President Trump would come out and through his social media state in such a brazen way that we should vote for the candidate that he prefers, because if not, there would be consequences. I think that the results, the outcome of the elections, will be eloquent about how much that impacted our own political process.
Thank you very much, Rodolfo, for your time here from the South, for helping us getting deep into the relevance of today's elections in Honduras, for the people of Honduras and for the rest of the region.
Thank you very much.